Fans of the home team applauded Jesus Navas. A crucial moment in the Real Madrid-Sevilla match. Another defeat for Manchester United. It seems like Ruben Amorim is starting to complain about his sporting kite. Flo Perez will sell Vinicius for the success of the Royal Club. It seems counterintuitive, but the team will be better off without the Brazilian. And now let's discuss why. In Barcelona, they talked about the dismissal of Hansi Flick, and Salah set a historical record. Right now, the Egyptian is the best player on the planet. Today, we're discussing this and more. Friends, this is Dose of Football and the top 10 hottest news of this hour. Friends, be sure to support this video with a like. Let's collect 5,000 thumbs up today. We'll definitely see each other tomorrow. Well, I wish you a pleasant appetite and a pleasant viewing. Barcelona lost the most important match against Atletico Madrid. And now the statistics of the Catalans have become even worse than in the last season under Xavi. Then, after 14 rounds, Barcelona scored 41 points. In this campaign, the Blaugranas earned 3 points less. And of course, after this, rumors start to crawl about the possible resignation of the head coach. Yes, you didn't hear wrong. Hansi Flick could be fired before the end of this season. Considering the unpredictability of the Barcelona president, it's not hard to believe this. Just remember how Joan Laporta dealt with Xavi. In January, the Spanish coach made a conscious decision and announced that this would be his last season at the helm of Barcelona. But after his words, the team's results went downhill, and the president decided that the Spanish manager needed to stay. He persuaded him for a long time, and in the end, Xavi agreed to continue working. However, the results got worse, and Laporta drastically changed his decision. In the end, Xavi was kicked out, and a German coach was taken in his place. History repeats itself as Barca faces a crisis of results. The club's top management is considering dismissing the current coach, at least if you believe the information in the Spanish media. But there is not a gram of logic in this decision. Let's remember under what circumstances Flick found himself at the beginning of the season. He had a meager roster, which was decimated by injuries to key players. There was no Araujo, there was no Gavi, there was a hole in the defense. Flick had to improvise and put young players who blossomed under his leadership and became key players. Just look at the example of Marc Casado. Now you see his game and think, did this guy really play somewhere in the backwoods last season? He's a real genius. Despite serious problems, the German definitely started on all fronts. He led the Spanish championship for a long time. He lost just one Champions League match. Hansi Flick's team defeated Real Madrid and Bayern, a rare occurrence for both teams. Usually, Barcelona struggled against strong teams, not being able to impose a fight on them. That is, despite all the problems, Hansi Flick showed his coaching skill. Now his team has fallen into a crisis. The performance has hit rock bottom. The main problem lies precisely in it right now. Only Robert Lewandowski had 5 clear chances to score in the last 2 matches. Guess how many times he converted these moments into goals? Lewandowski, despite being off form, remains the primary striking force for Barcelona this season. So it turns out that the problems of one player reflect on the results of the entire team. The management would be better off thinking about how to help the current coach and strengthen the squad in the winter window, rather than shuffling coaches like a fickle dictator. Rashford turned out to be unnecessary for the new head coach. If before these were guesses, now we see concrete confirmation of this. The next one is left out of the squad for the 3rd time in a row. This time he missed the trip with Bermatov, and the head coach explained his decision as follows. Rashford says, "This is my decision and it will always be mine. I want my players to give their all, and then I will try different combinations with different players. There are discussions about the attacker expressing his desire to leave the team. I am focused on this matter." This was said about his relationship with the breakup. All MU footballers, to some extent, began to ignore Rashford and take his side. He now has no other choice but to leave the team. Despite the Englishman's chaotic and unstable career, the list of contenders for him is impressive. In addition to a number of Saudi clubs, European giants are also interested in his services. Paris Saint-Germain is the favorite to sign Rashford. The team's head coach somehow believes that the Englishman will be a good reinforcement on the attack front. I find it hard to imagine Rashford consistently scoring goals from the 9 position. But Luis Enrique is an artist, so he sees it better. Spanish teams are also interested in the upcoming event. Barcelona needs to bolster its attack due to Robert Lewandowski's slump. But it's hard to say whether Rashford will fit into Flick's team. Under the German coach's guidance, the overall synchronicity of players on all fields remains crucial. And Rashford doesn't seem like the kind of person who will constantly work in defense if the team has to structurally defend. Nevertheless, I still consider swapping for Frankie de Jong to be a good idea. Another contender is Atletico Madrid, who are simply preparing for the second half of the season, when the last juices will be squeezed out of the team. Diego Simeone has a great opportunity to clinch the Spanish championship. He wouldn't want to face a staffing crisis at the beginning of spring. This is where Rashford's services might come in handy, even if he's not as standout a footballer as Julian Alvarez or Antoine Griezmann. But he can be let go for squad rotation. It's hard to disagree with such a thesis. But still, among all the listed clubs, I personally see Reims in the French championship. It's premature for him to visit the Far East, but I don't exclude the possibility. And Spanish teams don't really need a footballer like Rashford. But no matter what predictions I personally made, nobody knows the real future of the Englishman, even he himself. But something tells me that we will soon get an answer to the question about Rashford's next club. The situation in Manchester City is on the brink of disaster. It hasn't passed yet only because it's just the middle of the season. If such results were at the end, it would be a real disgrace. The team has dropped below the Eurocup zone based on the last round's results. It's unclear when Pep Guardiola will solve the issue. For now, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And the fate of the head coach raises questions. Following Aston Villa's meal, the English media speculated about the potential sacking of the Catalan manager. But former Liverpool and Fulham player Danny Murphy disagrees with them. He believes that Guardiola will continue his work until he finds a way out of the crisis. I think Guardiola would agree to fourth place now if he was offered. Will he be managing the club at the start of next season? Yes, that's a good question. This is a unique situation for the greatest coach of his generation. I don't think he'll want to jump off the boat until he figures this out, said Murphy. The Catalan is unlikely to voluntarily resign. But the management may be forced to take such a step if the results do not improve. Imagine if the Mountaineers are threatened with not falling into the zone in the Eurocups by the end of the season. They are already 4 points behind fourth place. And this is a serious handicap, which cannot be overcome with such results. No one dares to dream of the championship anymore, as everyone understands the reality of the situation. By the way, an insight from a Spanish publication, which decided to reveal the cards about Erling Haaland's future, speaks in favor of Murphy's theory. The source claims that Guardiola is willing to let the Norwegian go, but only under one condition. He would like the striker to spend another season with Manchester City. After that, he will be willing to choose a new club for himself. But which team would want to get Haaland in such form? Over the past 4 months, we have been convinced that the Norwegian performs well only if the balls are served to him on a platter. When this does not happen, he cannot independently decide the outcome of the match. His statistics in the Manchester derby just don't add up. Not a single positive action. And only 6 passes in 96 minutes of play. He stands by the penalty box, waiting for the ball to be passed to him. Who now wants to buy him for 20 million euros? No one needs him for that kind of money. If nothing else, Haaland can't offer anything but a freeze. Kylian Mbappe acclimatizes in Madrid eventually, and becomes a confident leader of this team's attack. The only question is at what cost? Watching the matches of the Royal Club, one trend is clearly visible. Madrid definitely plays on the attack if either Mbappe or Vinicius is missing on the field. However, if these two come out together, it turns into some kind of mess, which reduces the team's attacking potential. The Frenchman plays better without Vinicius on the field. As an example, you can look at his brilliant game in yesterday's match against Sevilla. It's simply a dream for every personal fan of Mbappe. The Frenchman scored a beautiful goal in the match's opening minutes. If you missed the match and want to enjoy Donatello's performance, you can check out the review on our Telegram channel. The link to it is in the description and in the pinned comment. Welcome to the bonfire. We already have over 42,000. Fantastic. Let's get back to the topic of Mbappe and Vinicius. There's a feeling that one of them will have to be sold for the team's successful play. And you must understand perfectly well that Perez won't let go of his favorite. So, the victim of circumstances will either be the Brazilian winger or his compatriot named Rodrigo. But the latter is ready to step back so others may shine. In contrast, Vinicius is unwilling to make those sacrifices. He wants to win the golden ball, and that means he needs to be the first fiddle in his team. Honestly speaking, selling Vinicius no longer seems like such a bad option. This will allow Real to earn a historically large sum of money, as well as reduce the pressure on the head coach. The Live shows good football when there are two wingers and one Bellingham on the field, who plays the role of a false nine. In such a formation, all the strong sides of the Madrid attack are revealed. If next summer 3 precise reinforcements are made to the squad, 2 in defense and 1 in the center of the field, then Madrid can again demonstrate the highest level, given that the money should come after the sale of Vinicius. That's why the transfer of the Brazilian seems like a logical way out of the situation. And for the transfer of Mbappe, they will have to sacrifice those who have been pulling Real Madrid to the trophies in recent years. Such is the paradox. He aims to fulfill one of Barcelona's top summer transfer objectives. Paris's transfer history with the Catalans is filled with intriguing confrontations. It's never a sin to remember how the Blaugranas tried to take over the halfback leader Marco Verratti. But they couldn't get the Italian. But they managed to lose one of their main stars, Neymar. A recent example is the transfer of Ousmane Dembele. The Frenchman had just started to show good football in Barcelona when he was pulled to Paris Saint-Germain. Moreover, they did it extremely untimely. If the transfer had happened 2 months earlier, Barcelona could have re-signed Lionel Messi. On the other hand, we wouldn't have seen the debut of Jamal Musiala and all the subsequent achievements that this young genius has accomplished. By the way, Passagier tried to take Jamal away from Barcelona. He offered the Catalans some astronomical sum for the 16-year-old winger, but John Laporta refused the money and gave preference to prospects, one of the few successful decisions of the president in his second term. Passagier and Barcelona are preparing to dive into the transfer market once again. The list of priority goals for both clubs includes the same footballer. This season has shown that Barcelona needs to solve personnel problems. Many team leaders simply need a rest, and there is no one to replace them. Next summer, Catalans will again attempt to sign Nick Williams. But the Parisians also needed this player. Spanish media report that Luis Enrique is unhappy with the current attack of the team and wants the management to buy him new performers. The coach is also looking at Nico and hopes to secure him in the summer window. The Spaniard's transfer cost remains unchanged. He can still be bought for 60 million. Parisians will easily allocate such a modest sum, but it's more difficult for Barcelona. But if Laporta correctly supports the already legendary hands, then the Catalans will also find the money. But despite financial independence, Paris Saint-Germain will not just convince the player to move to such a weak league. Still, Nico is not Ousmane Dembele, and he has some ambitions and goals. He wants to perform at the highest level. This has nothing to do with playing in the French Championship. In general, Barca can finally poke Paris in the nose and win the historic transfer duel. Manchester United has once again lost points in the English Premier League. This time, the modest Bournemouth made fun of the Red Devils. Although perhaps the word modest is not quite suitable for describing Cherries this season. Somehow the team is now in 5th place in the tournament table. With a successful collision, the situation can swing into the Champions League zone. By the way, Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest are now fighting for 4th place. Who could have imagined such a scenario at the start of the season? Successes are, of course, the cherries on top. The EV Prime team plays attractive football. If there are any fans of her among you, please accept my sincere congratulations. But it's still more interesting to discuss the failures of Manchester United. To give you an idea of how bad things are for the Red Devils, let's consider some very telling statistics. For the first time ever, Manchester United were in the bottom half of the Premier League table at Christmas. This, I underline, is a historical fiasco for the entire red half of Manchester. Moreover, a home win in the match against Bournemouth would have catapulted the Red Devils straight to the 10th line, but they failed miserably. Watching the reaction of Ruben and Marima is just as hard as watching Pep Guardiola's disappointment. Both coaches simply don't understand how to get out of this Manchester quagmire. And here's a logical question. Why did they have to explode in the middle of the season, throw everything at such an important stage, and rush into Crisis United, especially since you swore that you wouldn't exchange Sporting for anything? Nothing shines for the Devils anymore. But now the people of Lisbon have found themselves in some kind of mess. However, my dear haters from the comments, everything in Liverpool is just beautiful. In the last match, the Scousers staged a real shootout with Tottenham. The Spurs scored 3 goals, and such a number of balls should guarantee at least a draw. But the 6 return balls from Liverpool made it clear that Tottenham had nothing to shine in this match. Anyone who watched this game understands there was no resistance from the Spurs defense. Just a walk-through yard, come in, score. And you don't have to invite Mohamed Salah twice. The Egyptian had a blast, and also set a historical achievement. He scored 3+2 in this match, thus reaching a mark of 15 goals and 11 assists in this Premier League season. No one else in the history of England has ever achieved the 10+10 mark before Christmas. Salah is the first to reach this landmark achievement. There have been many great footballers in the history of the league, real legends of this game. But none of them can boast such productivity. But 30-year-old Salah can. If he had extended his contract, there would be no price for him. An emotional and very touching moment occurred in the match between Real Madrid and Sevilla. Legendary Keylor Navas has ended his brilliant career, leaving a huge contribution to the history of goalkeeping art. Before the start of the match, players from both teams formed a corridor of honor to pay tribute to this outstanding player. Navas's tears were predictable, as years dedicated to his beloved game were behind him. Saying goodbye to football is always hard, especially if it's been your whole life. Navas has achieved a lot in his career. He became a world champion and twice won the European Championship with the Spanish national team. His performances for his native Sevilla brought the club 4 Europa League trophies and numerous other awards. Even in Manchester City, where his successes were less massive, he left his mark, winning the English Championship and a couple of league cups. Few can boast such a collection of achievements. In his last match, Navas started on the bench, watching as Real Madrid dominated on the field. In the second half, he entered as a substitute to incredible support from the stands. Real Madrid fans greeted Navas with loud cheers, touching him deeply. After the game, he noted never encountering such respect from another team's fans in his long career. Real Madrid players also warmly bid farewell to their teammate, knowing football was losing a legend with Navas's departure. However, Navas will continue working in Seville in an administrative role, a decision made last summer when considering retirement. The club's management convinced him to stay on for a few more months to support the team during a difficult period. The departure of Jesus Navas is not just a farewell to a player, it's an entire era that fans around the world will remember. He remains a part of the Sevilla family and a symbol of dedication to football, inspiring new generations not only with his successes, but also with his endless love for the game. You can't just end a football weekend without a fight. In the last 2 weeks, Wolverhampton has been answering for this, whose players, against the backdrop of the crisis, just went crazy. First, the Wolves captain Mario Lemina decided to have a boxing meal with West Ham's captain Jared Bowen. The baton for the next week was passed to the attacking team of Mateo Sukun, who almost got into a fight with half of the Ipswich representatives. But this time, no one from England decided to clarify the relationship with fists, even the Wolverhampton players. However, the coaches of 2 Spanish teams that play in Segunda tried. There was a serious fight there. After the final whistle of the Zaragoza and Ferrol match, there was a brawl between representatives of both teams. The hosts won by a slim margin. Apparently, something did not please the representatives of Ferrol during the meeting, and they wanted to solve the problem with their fists. In the end, the football match turned into a real brawl. The head coach of Ferrol stood out the most, who literally went on a frontal attack against his counterpart. Of course, the referee issued a red card to both participants of the brawl, despite the fact that the Saragossa coach was the one who suffered in it. He faces a minimum disqualification, but his colleague may get the full brunt, up to a 6-month suspension from football activities. However, he's unlikely to face such a harsh sentence. Most likely he will be punished under the 3rd article of the disciplinary code and will be suspended for a period of 4 to 12 matches. The verdict will not be known until after the new year, as all of Spanish football is now on break and will only return in mid-January. Some could really use such a break. Now I'm talking about Barcelona and its tired players. It's just a pity that they have to participate in the Spanish Cup and Super Cup, which will consume an additional 2 weeks of the Catalans' rest time. Tottenham fans are demanding the president's departure. However, since Daniel Levy is the owner of the club, they are essentially calling for the team to be sold to another owner. The cause of the fans' anger is not only the results on the field, but also some administrative decisions. Activists have criticized Levy's financial policy, particularly the increased ticket prices and removal of some fan discounts. Moreover, since Daniel Levy's arrival to the presidential post at Tottenham, the team has practically not won any trophies. The only significant achievement remains the victory in the English Cup, which happened more than 15 years ago. Overall, the president's tenure cannot be deemed successful. But he's not used to feeling the wrath of fans, so personally, I doubt that he will just up and leave his post. As for the future head coach of the team, that's a more pressing question. Still, the recent results are disappointing, and the performance in some new season matches is unimpressive. The instability is especially apparent. They can easily beat Manchester City away and then lose to Ipswich at home. But it's hard to blame the head coach. And although some English publications have already talked about dismissal, there is no reason for such a radical decision. More precisely, they exist, but the coach can't do anything about them. He has lost nearly all his defense. And how is he supposed to get out of this situation? Correct, he is betting on the attacking power of the team. Sometimes this strategy works, sometimes it doesn't. You know what surprises me most about the situation with Tottenham? No team in the Premier League, not even Liverpool with its fantastic form, scores more goals. But at the same time, they are in 11th place in the table. This team is a real paradox. As soon as all the players get in shape, the results will improve. Last season, Postecoglou showed how strong a specialist he is. To fire him now means to fight the symptoms, not the cause of the disease. Mikhail Mudrik continues to be at the center of a loud doping scandal. The Ukrainian defender, who plays for Chelsea, may face a long disqualification for using meldonium. The punishment could be up to 4 years, which would be a serious blow to his career. Paul Pogba found himself in a similar situation before. The Juventus player managed to reduce the disqualification period to 18 months. He is now preparing to return to major football. However, the topic of Mudrik is much more controversial. Some harshly criticize him, claiming he is at fault himself. On the other hand, some defend the Ukrainian. For example, John Obi Mikel, a former Chelsea midfielder, expressed his support for the player. I hope Mikhail is not guilty. People frequently recommend things claimed to enhance performance. These could be friends or even friends of friends who will say, "Try this. It might help you deliver the best result." But you should always ask, is it legal or not, until his guilt is proven, said Obi Mikel. In other words, Mikel argues that Mudrik is not guilty because someone else advised him against the action, and it wasn't Mudrik's own idea. Yes, it's just spam. As the investigation proceeds, Mikhail attempts to divert his attention from the scandal. He recently visited Saudi Arabia to watch the Usyk versus Fury fight. The Ukrainian boxer won the rematch, repeating his victory from their first fight. And after the fight, journalists turned to Mudrik for comments. And he noted that the victory was well-deserved. He claims Usyk remains undefeated, and Tyson's strength turned out to be insufficient for serious competition. As for Mudrik's career, the main intrigue now is the unveiling of the second attempt. If it also turns out to be positive, Mudrik faces not only disqualification, but also the termination of his contract with Chelsea. This will also relieve the club of the need to pay a large salary to a player who has been spending more time on the reserve bench in recent months. Mikhail insists he has never knowingly taken banned substances. However, this raises the question, how did meldonium end up in his system? The answer to this question will determine not only Mudrik's future, but also the reputation of the club. After all, if it turns out that the doping was introduced accidentally or due to the negligence of doctors, the responsibility may lie not only with the player, but also with the medical staff of the team. And today I have everything. Friends, be sure to charge a like under this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. I really enjoy watching YouTube videos, and I also like it. Your likes, subscriptions, and comments are a huge motivation for us to work every day. Well, my name is Kirill Cast, and this was your daily dose of football. Peace to your house and Johanga, friends.